don't care. I'm not even sure that you know. I'm not even sure you are there. Every time you're tempted, your confidence in God is at stake, not just your self-control. And when in the midst of that temptation, if you're able to step back and say, now wait a minute. Temptation, you are not going to steal my future. You are not going to steal my family. You are not going to steal my faith. See, the real temptation is being tempted to remove your trust in God every single time. Temptation is attempting to steal your confidence and faith in God. And when you quit trusting, you will quit obeying. And when you quit obeying, sooner or later, you will quit believing. It's just a matter of time. So to be faithful, you have to put your temptation in its proper context. One of the keys to overcoming temptations is to put it in its proper context. And the proper context is that your faith, your confidence in God is at stake. So here's Jesus. He hasn't eaten in 40 days and he's hungry. And Satan says, look, meet your need. It's a legitimate need. You haven't eaten for 40 days, for goodness sake. God made you to be hungry. Sooner or later, you will eat again. You're not fasting for the rest of your life. Eventually, you're going to eat. So why not eat right now? Just do this. You have the power. And Jesus could have made every excuse in the world. Well, that's all true. Everything, Satan, you've told me is true. I mean, if my Father loved me, He wouldn't have sent me up here in the first place. If He loved me, He would have provided me with something to eat. If He loved me, He would not have allowed us to have this conversation. If He loved me and cared about me, why hasn't He done something by now? If He loved me, if He cared, if He knew, if He loved me, if He cared, if He knew. If He loved me, if He cared, if He knew. And we do the same thing, right? God, if God loved me, why would God put me through this? Why would God allow that? Why would God confront me with this other thing? Isn't that what we ask? Why, God? Why this? And Jesus could have gone down that road too. But He realized that the issue wasn't food. The issue was, would He continue to stay under the authority of His heavenly Father? And would He continue to trust His Father? And if God led Him up there to fast, then He would trust God to meet His need, even if He would starve to death doing so. So listen to what happened. Jesus answered him, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone." He said, Satan, it's true. I don't know what is happening to me right now. I don't know where my next meal will come from. I don't know when my next meal will come. But let me tell you something. God has spoken to this situation and every other situation like it. God has let me know in history that He will provide for the needs of all those who belong to Him. And I am not going to doubt God. Satan, you think the issue is, can I do a miracle? Can I take matters into my own hands? But the real issue is, will I doubt my Father? And the answer is no, because it is written. In other words, God has spoken. This is a moral issue. This is a will of God issue. And as hungry as I am, I will not abandon my fellowship with the Father in order to meet a physical need, even if it's a legitimate one. And he reaches way back into Hebrew history, all the way back to Deuteronomy, and says, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone." God proved a long time ago that he meets the needs of men and women who trust him. And Jesus said, "As hungry as I am, you are not going to steal my faith. You are not going to steal my relationship with my heavenly Father. You are not going to steal my confidence in God. And I will just wait. And I will wait because I believe God is interested, and I believe God is aware, and I believe God is able to meet my need." So let me ask you, what is the area of your life where you are most tempted to meet a legitimate need in an irresponsible or an illegitimate way? Every one of us in this room have them. Where is it for you? What is the area of your life where you are most tempted to meet a legitimate need? Companionship, intimacy, progress, financial, professional goals. Whatever it is, where are you most tempted to meet a legitimate need in an irresponsible way? In that particular area of your life, that's where God would like to show up in an unmistakable and intangible way if you will let him. If you will recognize that what's at stake is not the weekend. What's at stake isn't spring break, or what's at stake isn't my reputation. What's at stake isn't financial gain. What's at stake isn't closing the deal. What's at stake is my confidence in God's willingness to show up in my world. But to do that, you have to stop in the midst of that temptation and say, man shall not live by deals alone, or dates alone, or spring break alone, what you did last weekend alone, progress alone, income alone, bigger is better alone, gadgets alone, cooler cars, more fashionable clothes. That is not what life is about. Life is about uninterrupted fellowship with the Father. And God knows what I need. And I refuse to break God's law in order to meet a legitimate need, even temporarily. Put that temptation in its proper context. Temptation, you are not going to steal my faith. You're not going to rob me of what is more important than the thing, whatever the thing is. I'll just wait. And I will trust my Heavenly Father to meet my need, because temptation is always a test of faith, not just a test of my self-control. Jesus was hungry for food. What are you hungry for? Do you think God knows that? Jesus was hungry for food. What are you hungry for? You have to decide if God knows. If God cares, will God do anything about it? And if you believe God knows and cares and can and will do something about it, if you believe that, that's the time to stop in the midst of the temptation. Because you know where the answer is. It's in that gap where God is honored. It's in that gap where your faith is stretched and grows. In the gap is where God shows up and you breathe a sigh of relief. And then you say, I had no idea He cared and that He would act on my behalf. But it's in the gap that we're tempted. And it's in the gap that we feel like it's all up to us. And that's where we have to stop and trust Him. So what is the area of your life where you're most consistently tempted to meet a legitimate need in an irresponsible way? And would you be willing to stop right there in the midst of that? Listen, too many Christians don't trust God. How about you? All I've been saying is, if you don't trust Him, you won't obey Him. And when you don't obey Him, there will come a time when you won't believe in Him. Look at what Jesus modeled for us. He taught us that when we're tempted, the issue is our faith. And you have to make up your mind. I will not let temptation rob me of my confidence in God. I believe God knows. I believe God can. And I believe God will. And I am going to wait and I am going to trust Him. There's more at stake than simply the decision I'm being tempted to make. That's why I believe one of the best habits you can have is to get up every morning and get on your knees somewhere and cry out to your Heavenly Father and say, I believe. My temptations seem to be the same things. Maybe that's different for you. You maybe don't face the same temptations every day. It seems to be that way for me. But I tend to be tempted by the same thing over and over again. And so I say to God sometimes, God, I know I'm going to be tempted to think this or be tempted by that. And so before we ever get there, I just want you to know, and I want to remind myself that I trust you. I believe you can meet that need. I believe you can give me the ability the ability I need to wait. You're going to give me the ability to wait. And I trust you. I trust you to meet my needs. I trust you to protect me. I trust you to provide for me. And when I'm tempted, remind me, oh God, that you are all I need. Temptation, you are not going to steal my future. You are not going to steal my family. You are not going to steal my faith. My Heavenly Father is the God who invites me to call Him Father. That means He knows, He cares, and when He is ready, He will show up on my behalf. Temptation is always a test of your faith, not just your self-control. So in the midst of your temptation, stop and see it for what it really is. That's what I came to say. And if this morning you're ready to be done with temptation altogether and put your faith in the one who has put His faith in you and has given you His Son to face not only temptations but all of life by grace, then this is decision time for you. If you're ready to give yourself to Him, you come as we stand together and as we sing.